Albert, you want to do a mic check? Yeah. Okay. Anthony Prosceno. He's a producer at KKTV in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He's originally from Wyoming. He's a graduate of Arizona State's Cronkite School of Journalism. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
You forgot number one in innovation 4 years running.
Number one in innovation 4 years running. Says he graduated a mere year and a half ago, so he knows some stuff, not everything.
Yeah.
But he's here to talk to you guys about filling newscast and that news hole that you have to fill when you're news. So welcome, Anthony.
Yeah. Hello. So yeah, I'm a producer in Colorado Springs at a TV station there. And so understanding time, the time you have and how much time you have to fill, that's everything you do as a producer. You have to make sure your show goes on time. You have to make sure you get out of your show on time. You have to make sure there's enough stuff in your show to fill the entire time. And a lot of times, because it's all about time, you have to know what your duties are and how much time you have to do certain things. That could be news gathering, which it depends on your newsroom, what kind of, if you do any of that. I know some like bigger markets like Phoenix, where you just focus on your show, you have an assignments desk. Smaller station like Colorado Springs, you don't have the luxury of having all those people, so it falls on you to do a lot of news gathering, which could be calling prosecutors, police, firefighters for information, and planning stories for your show. So normally you have meetings, sometimes you don't, to see what's going on in your newsroom that day. So yeah, you always want to plan to fill your show. What's happening today? Do I have a press conference on a big story we've been following during a certain time? During your show, is there anything supposed to be happening during your show, or does breaking news happen during your show and you fill your show with that stuff? Anything happening before or after your show, like any press conferences or just stories that you know you've reported on before your show, or is there some event you want to promote and tease to after your show? So those are just things you look at while planning for your show. And then the rest of your time is spent filling content to make sure you get out on time. And if anyone has any questions, just interrupt me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually my next slide, kind of. So I work on the 5:30 and 10 o'clock shows at night. And it's important to figure out what type of show you're doing. Like, is it a short show? So for example, on my 5:30 show, lots of days I'll have 2-3 reporters that'll fill 3 minutes. Break times are longer in that show. I have a traffic reporter and a sports anchor in that show, so I have a lot less time to fill, so I have more time to figure out what stories do I want to focus on. And so like for that show, I wrote it down. That 5:30 show I get in at 2, I have about 3.5 hours to finish my show. And I have to fill about 8 minutes worth of content. And with 3 reporters for that 8 minutes, I have to fill about 4.5 minutes of non-reporter content, like VOSOTs and regular VOs, quick stories, teases. For a longer show, for example, this happens a lot where it's just a monster show. Like our 4 o'clock hour has small break times. We have 3 reporters, and that show I have to fill 24 minutes of content in 7 hours of time to work, which that is a lot of time to fill, and you don't normally have that much content locally for a show like that. And then other types of shows, like here on weekends, you'll have accordion shows. What those are shows where you don't know your start time, you know your out time, and you'll be following something like the Oscars last night. If you're an ABC station, I think it was on ABC. Or like Sundays, Broncos games are on our station, so we come out of sports or we come out of that game and we could start our 5:30 show at 5 o'clock. We could not have a show at all because the game went too long. And the time of day also for planning and filling content is important. Most of your news happens between 9 a.m. and 6 o'clock at night. So a lot of your morning shows, if you work overnights, early in the morning from like 4 a.m. to 7 or so, those are your show times. A lot of your content is already out there. You just have to write it, put it in. If you have a show like a noon show or early afternoon, lots of your content came from a couple hours earlier, or it's happening now, or yeah. So your show could change a lot within the last 2 hours since everything is happening and you want to get the newest information out. Or your 10 o'clock show is more of a magazine style. This is what the day was like. So you have time to really produce that. And so this is kind of how my day looks. You want to try to make artificial deadlines for yourself so you know, am I going to get a show out on time? So for me, it's like an hour before the show. I'd like to have every Anchor Red story written and just completed graphic-wise, so I don't have to worry about any of that. 30 minutes before the show, I like to make sure all my reporter scripts I've looked over, make sure there's no big red flags I have to edit, and also flesh those out. How do I want my anchor lead to look? How do I want my toss to look? Are they producing a package, or are they going to toss to Vo and SOTs and graphics during their live shot? 15 minutes before a show, I want to make sure my teases are done, so I don't have to worry about that. And pretty much I have this list just so that I have time for breaking news right before a show, because I don't have time to go work on other stories when the most important thing that's leading my show is happening 5 minutes before my show. We do. I can show teases. Some teases. Sometimes we have live video if there's things happening. Other times we'll just show regular video real quick. So this day, it was the first day we had entire school district teachers go on strike. And so this was the noon newscast, so everyone's out there, so I planned on going back to that a lot because that's what was happening and people wanted to tune in to TV to see what's happening now. So we had lots of live stuff.
On strike, hundreds of teachers in southern Colorado are marching right now outside of schools. We're live from the scene for you. Good afternoon, thanks for joining us.
And so that was our quick show tease. So if people are tuning in Pueblo, which is about an hour south of Colorado Springs where this was happening, we want to show, hey, we're there if this is what you're caring about, so you watch our show.
I'm Katie Pelton. School is canceled today in District 60 because of a teacher strike. Hundreds of teachers are picketing outside of schools in Pueblo. This comes after the school board rejected a recommendation for a 2% pay raise. On Friday, D60 offered the Pueblo Education Association a 2% stipend to be paid for this year. Plus, it offers a 2.25% cost of living raise for the next school year and $50 extra a month for health insurance. The school board says this offer is still on the table right now. That offer is the second one the teachers union rejected. The teachers do not want a 2% stipend for this year. Instead, they're asking for a retroactive raise for this year. That would allow them to keep building their salary base for each year. We'll see teachers picketing at different locations all across Pueblo today. This is a map of their locations at all 11 schools and the district headquarters in downtown. They started protesting this morning around the same time that class would have started. 11 News reporter.
So not every story is a simple, gunman is on the run for killing someone story. Like there's complex stories like a teacher strike. So were they demanding what's been offered? So that will fill up a lot of time, like 20 seconds for each side of that. We also want to show what's happening that now. So we showed a map of where people are striking. And then now we fill a lot of the rest of the story with a reporter who's actually out there talking to teachers and union officials in the school district.
Adam Hernick joins us live in Pueblo now. Adam's at the District 60 Administration Building where teachers are protesting. Adam, what's happening there?
Yeah, Katie, take a look behind me. Teachers are marching around the administration building for District 60. They're chanting and holding up their signs, demanding more professionalism and that raise that we've been talking about, that 2% raise. Teachers across the community have been rallying and on strike starting early this morning. They're asking for that 2% pay raise. There is extra security here at my location. Several police officers and police cruisers are now on scene to make sure everything goes smoothly and everyone stays safe. The district says they hope to resolve this strike soon so school can get back on schedule.
This is a crisis now, and one day is too many days. And so we would obviously love to reach a resolution as soon as possible.
And of course, here's another live look at those teachers on strike here in front of the District 60 building, holding up their signs, demanding that pay raise. And a little later on in the show, Katie, I'll be talking with the teacher to see how long we can expect the strike to go and how they feel about how it's going so far. Live in Pueblo, Adam Hernick, KKTV 11 News.
Adam, thanks so much. We'll check in with you in just a moment. We're staying on top of this breaking news alert all day, and you can stay up to date with the latest information. Just download our KKTV 11 News app. Head to the App Store and search KKTV.
Yeah, and lots of times if you can tease your app's website for like 10 seconds, that's an easy way to fill 10 seconds if you need. And also push people to your websites and everything that makes you money.
As we go to break, the teacher protests continue this afternoon. This is live video of those protests taking place outside of the administration building in Pueblo. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're watching.
And so that was my tease to my B block. We had live video, and we try to not kill teases just so that we can keep a viewer interested to keep watching after our commercial breaks. Yeah. And it fills about 20-15 seconds at the end of each block, which helps out a lot, especially if you have a lot of content time to fill.
We're staying on top of this 11 breaking news alert.
And so right now this is my B block.
Hundreds of teachers are protesting in Pueblo right now. 11 News reporter Adam Hernick joins us live there. Adam, I know you've been talking with teachers there. What are they telling you?
Well, Katie, they're very frustrated. They feel like they've been disrespected. They haven't had the pay raise here in a couple of years that they really want. And that's why they're outside the administration building and the other locations here in Pueblo, picketing and striking and getting their message across. I'm joined here by Robert Donovan, who's a middle school teacher. And thanks for joining me. Why are you doing this?
Well, I've been a part of this district my whole entire life, from elementary to middle to high school, and now that I'm
a teacher in this district, I see the extent of disrespect our district is showing our teachers. We're not asking for a whole lot. And beyond just the money that we're asking for respect and value. And we want our district to value us more than they're currently valuing us. They tell us that enrollment is declining. They tell us they need to let go of teachers. But one strange thing is they don't get rid of any administrators. So here we have this very...
Yeah, so like whenever you have breaking news like this, it's easy to go back and fill time. So like at the beginning of our show, we had a reporter giving you the nuts and bolts of what's going on. Here, so we don't get too bored in your A block, you can go straight out to live interviews with people to understand more of the story of what's going on in your community.
Top-heavy district. A lot of the students, we get back with my students, I know.
Rally behind me will go until about 2 this afternoon, and we'll come back to you a little bit later in the show here in just a little bit. Live in Pueblo, Adam Duvernay, KKTV 11 News.
Adam, thank you so much. We'll check in with you in just a few minutes. Hundreds of local teachers are rallying for better pay. This is live video of the protest going on outside the D60.
So another tease to try to fill time when you mostly want to show just this teacher protest because it is the biggest story in the state at the time.
Tracking this 11 breaking news alert this noon hour. Hundreds of local teachers are on strike right now. This is live video outside the District 60 Administration Building in Pueblo. The strike forced D60 to cancel class today. The teachers union says they're tired of not receiving fair pay. This comes after the school board rejected a recommended 2% pay raise. D60 has offered the teachers 2 proposals, but both have been denied at this point. The district says their second offer is still on the table. It includes a 2% stipend, a 2.25% pay raise for next school year, and $50 extra per month for health insurance. We'll take you live out there in just a few minutes.
So I try to hit, whenever I have breaking news, the top of each block with something related to that, because that's what people want to hear about, even if it's nothing new. So like right there, I just took a 30-second live picture, re-explained the story, try to tell it differently in case there are some parts of the story viewers didn't get right away, just to fill 30 more seconds during that block. That D block.
Staying on top of our 11 breaking news alert, hundreds of teachers are on strike right now. It's taking place for D60 teachers.
And a lot of times you don't know how you're going to fill. You just know, hey, I want something on this story. So like this is the final block of my show. I slugged out where I have minute 20 maybe of time that I want this reporter to fill. So we're hoping to get, we didn't know what was going to happen this block, honestly. Luckily, all else fails, our backup plan was we'd have our reporter who's live at the scene retell what's going on out there behind him. But luckily, we got the teachers union president for this live interview.
Well, as you can hear behind me, there's a lot of chanting and ranting about what they want, that 2% raise. I'm here with Suzanne Etheridge with the Education Association. Have you heard from the district yet? They've been out here for about an hour now rallying.
We have not heard anything from the district today.
Yeah, how long can we expect this strike to toss? Let's go back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know you'll be on scene throughout the afternoon. We'll have the very latest.
Yeah, so lots of times you don't know how long your story is going to go. So I just filled the last minute in the final block of our show with just a live interview where you have to be in your reporter's ear, your anchor's ear. How much time do you have left? You're giving them a countdown of the entire show, telling them to toss back when they need to so we can get out of the show on time. So those are just different things you can do to go back to what people want to see and fill time. Anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay. So filling the news hole. So you just want to check what stories has your newsroom gathered, because those are your most important stories. That's what makes your station unique, or your newspaper. So you can really get those at the top of your newscast. So that's why in local news, people come to your station. And then checking your beats. This could be news partners. For example, my newsroom partners with the Colorado Springs Gazette, the biggest newspaper in our city. Are you on social media? Are you following police Twitter accounts, fire department Twitter accounts, anything where you could find content online, or follow up with first responders to get more information? Are people sending you press releases? Check those. Is there a story in those you could possibly find? How's the weather? Lots of people turn on local news to find out what the weather's like. What can I do tonight, tomorrow? Is it going to be icy roads on my drive to school? I know you guys don't deal with that here, but we deal with icy roads on our drive to work and school in the morning. And there's a lot you can do with weather to fill time. So, for example, this is something we do very often since we're in a market where it snows a lot during the winter, and so driving is hazardous whenever there's a storm.
KKTV 11 News at 10.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Don Ward.
And I'm Diane Derby. A cold night across southern Colorado tonight. The snow is starting to fall. It was falling earlier today. This is what it looks like tonight in downtown Colorado Springs.
We're going to get you out live on the roads in just a moment, but we want to start with this 11 breaking weather alert and our chief meteorologist, Brian Bledsoe.
Yeah, so you can just find good. That's the best video we had that night. We just want some sort of video, set the scene, what's going on, before we go to our chief meteorologist to tell people what's exactly going on right at the top of our show. And so that'll fill about 20 seconds before he takes over for about a minute. And so he explains all this stuff, and this wasn't executed the best.
Later in the show,
Okay, Brian, thanks so much. As we continue our 11 breaking weather alert, we want to show you a live look at the roads tonight. 11 News reporter Danielle Porter is live for us. She is in the passenger seat. Danielle, where are you?
Well, Diane, we're heading north on I-25 for Fountain, and in the last hour or so, another van.
So that normally our live drives, this is something we try to do whenever there's snow out there to fill time. We put a reporter on snow. How does it affect our viewer? Well, there's icy roads tonight. Stay off the roads. They're out there to tell people how the roads are. If they're clear, sometimes there's just snowplows have already gone to the interstate, and so it's nice and clear to drive. And it's just different ways you can find ways to fill with your lead story weather for that night.
And of snow moved through this area. You can see it piling up on the shoulders. In some spots, it's harder to see the lanes. It's kind of that fluffy snow right now, but as Brian was just saying, with these cold temperatures, it likely won't stay that way for long. We have already seen one plow out here, though, at least on I-25. And while these kinds of conditions aren't nearly as bad as the blizzards we saw a few weeks back, no one should stay out for very long in these temperatures.
With the cold and wind sticking around through tonight, temperatures are going to dip to a potentially dangerous level.
On really, really cold days where we know what's coming in, some bad weather, we'll make an effort to hit those places as many times as we can.
Colorado Springs officers with the homeless outreach team say no one should sleep on the streets in this cold. As of this morning, 137 beds are available at shelters here for those in need.
Even if they fill up, Springs Rescue Mission tells me they'll drop mats down for people. Nobody has to be in the cold.
Just last month, a man on a bus bench in blizzard conditions died overnight. According to the Springs Rescue Mission, there were dozens of empty spaces that night in their shelter.
We'll encourage them to go to the shelter. We'll make every effort to strongly encourage that. but we can't force somebody to go in out of the cold.
Please also encourage anyone who happens to see someone out in the cold who may need help. You can call police and officers will come and check it out. Reporting live on the roads, I'm Danielle Croyer, KKTV 11 News.
Makes sense, Danielle. Thanks very much.
And as you know, 11 News is your school closings headquarters. We are already seeing a few delays for tomorrow morning, including districts 20, 38, and 49, just because of how cold it's going to be in the morning. All delays are posted on our website, kktv.com. Our morning show will have them starting at 4:30.
Tonight we have this.
So yeah, just find ways to fill with your lead story, which people care about the weather when there's a blizzard out. So like in that video, that top of the A block, we set the scene with a quick 20-second vo of just what's going on. We went out to our meteorologist to say, here's what to expect. We wanted to look at the road since that's what people care about. So we had that, and then we had a reporter build off that with homeless shelters, which is a big story right now in Colorado Springs. And then we teased to our morning show because that's the next show. That's what people are going to turn on their television to watch in the morning, to add another 10 seconds. And so that's just one story we were working on that night, and it filled about 3.5 minutes worth of content and in an 11-minute A block. And then other ways to fill time. Are there stories of national interest that you have to have in your show, like mass shootings, massive wildfires, massive hurricanes? So are there ways to localize it? So lots of times you can fill with a local angle. Hey, there's a local victim in the shooting in Vegas, so we tried to reach out with him since he survived it, to fill more with that story, that tag content. Is it a hurricane? People are evacuating Florida right now. Let's go to our meteorologist who is tracking the storm so they can tell people what the situation is. And then special reports. So lots of times if you're working at an affiliate, you don't know, sometimes you have to kill a lot of content because the networks will go into a special report, you'll see, and you don't know how long they go. At least I'm at a CBS station, so they don't tell us. They just dip out of their special reports. So then when that happens, I'm looking at the rest of the show in my out time. How much stuff do I have to kill? How many breaks do I have to kill? How many stories do I have to kill to make sure I'm out on time? Because they just made your show super heavy. And then also, I'll get to filling the end of a block later. I can do it now. So pretty much, you saw a lot of that A block with the snow is a lot of longer stories, a minute, 2 minutes for a reporter, a minute for your meteorologist. Sometimes you don't know how long those are going to go, especially with a live drive, since they're just talking about the road conditions out there. It's not really, all of it's not scripted. So there's a good chance they could go long. So filling the end of a block, you have your heavier stories time-wise at the top of a block, because those are the ones you want to get to. The end of your block will have lots of 20-second stories, 30-second stories. That way, when things go unexpectedly at top of your block and you go super long, then you have stuff to kill quickly to make sure you get out of your break get to your break on time. Theming a newscast is a way you can really fill content time. If you have sports leading into your show, election nights, people want to see election coverage, but you still have to add other important things that happen during the day if it's an election day. National stories, make sure you tell the basics of a story, which could take 40 seconds. Any local angles will fill more time, whether you have local victims or heroes out at stories across the country. Can I take a live picture or live reporter just for a tease or for a quick 20-second intro to a bigger story? Any live reporters? So sometimes, for example, CBS, they'll have generic live shots. What that means is there's a national reporter covering the story, and they're going to start talking at 10:01 exactly on the dot. And so if you want to take them live, you have to fill a minute worth of time if your show starts at 10 o'clock to be able to toss to them 5 seconds before 10:01. And so they can tell their story. And then lots of times you have time to produce stories, but not every story warrants it. So like if you have a story that's only worth 20 seconds, like, oh, the convenience store was robbed. We don't have any video of it. We don't have any surveillance video of the crime actually happening. We don't have any good sound from neighbors or the clerk or police about what happened to tell a better story. Just make it 20 seconds, a map, a full screen on camera, so you don't waste your time trying to produce a story that you don't have enough things to tell a better story. And so that goes with elementing stories, improve the stories that you can, where you can. So do we have surveillance video? Do we have scene video? Do we have a mugshot of the guy who got arrested or the guy who's on the run? Can I do different things with camera shots to make it look better? Since I have time, I have elements to tell the story. And then should I have the anchor leave the desk so it looks different, so it's more exciting to watch? Also with that, you can describe more of what's going on in that story. Especially if you have video, like, do I have surveillance video? Take a look at this. Police need your help finding this guy on the run. That happens a lot. And then breaking news, what do you have time to do? Sometimes there's breaking news right in the middle of your show. And so you have to think while you're in the control room in the booth, okay, I just got this information. What do I have to get the information out as quick as possible, which could be, oh, let's roll a breaking animation graphic and go to a MCU or a two-shot and just let the anchor tell you what's going on. Or do I have video of a story that we've been covering already in my show where I can just drag that down? Hey, do you remember this video? There's this new information on this story. And so this is a way, here, let's see, what do I, and so a lot of times with filling time, I talked about is team coverage needed on a certain story. So this night, this is a story my community has covered in Colorado Springs for a long time. So pretty much this girl pictured right here, she disappeared back in 2013. Her body's never been found. On a Friday night last fall, they arrested her boyfriend at the time for murder in this case. And so there's lots of elements to this story where we can't just put one reporter on this story, because I don't want to hear one reporter talk for a 6-minute story on something that can be more fast-paced. And so I just let that reporter tell a section of the story.
Years of searching for Kelsey Shelling. Her one-time boyfriend is accused of killing her. Tonight, 11 News has all the angles. The suspect's family angry. Kelsey's mother thankful but worried about what happens next. And a former prosecutor explaining a murder arrest with no body ever found.
If the police have some other damning piece of evidence, then you don't need the body per se.
Plus, only on 11 News, that's an arrow in the door of a truck where the driver was when it hit.
Now, with 11 minutes of non-stop news and your no-wait weather, KKTV 11 News at 10.
Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I'm Don Ward. We start with 11 breaking news alert. The first major break in a case that has baffled our community for nearly 5 years now. Kelsey Shelling was 22 years old and pregnant when she went to see her boyfriend, Dante Lucas, in Pueblo, February 2013. No one admits to seeing her after that. Tonight, Dante Lucas is facing a charge of first-degree murder, accused of killing Kelsey Shelling. Here's Kelsey's mother.
It's going to be just a very, very long, hard road going forward as far as the justice side of things goes.
11 News reporter Jessica Light.
So for that anchor lead, obviously with a story with this much history and this much elements to it, we want to get the basics and the most important stuff right out there in front in the anchor lead, where we told you who everyone was, we showed you the boyfriend who was just arrested, since that's a little more new and what the story's about, and then we want to hear from the missing woman's mother, since that's the most intriguing element to keep watching. And then now we're going to a reporter.
Is the one who spoke to Kelsey's mother on the phone. She joins us now live at the Pueblo County Jail. Jess, what else did she say?
Don, she's relieved to know that Dante Lucas is being held here on no bond, but there's still a lot of answers she needs that are long overdue.
It's hard to believe it's been 5 years of searching and praying and working to get answers. What happened to Kelsey Shelling and her unborn child, Kadri? Tonight, those answers may be one step closer.
It is a huge step, but in the whole grand scheme of things, you know, it's not the most important thing to me personally. You know, that is for me to bring Kelsey home, but hopefully this will be a step in that direction.
So many people have helped search and shown support for Kelsey's family over the years.
I hope the next step is that he tells us where she's at. That needs to be next.
Tonight, we asked the suspect's mother if she has any comment on the charges her son is now facing. Justice is important to Laura Saxton, but there's something she wants more, to know where her daughter is.
There are people out there who probably have Kelsey's location. They know where she is, even if they weren't, you know, involved. So now with, you know, this arrest being made, if there was any fear of retaliation or anything like that, I would think they could put that fear aside and hopefully come forward.
Laura hopes that someone does come forward with any information so she can finally lay her daughter to rest. There is still a $50,000 reward being offered for Kelsey's location. Reporting live in Pueblo, Jessica Light, KKTV 11 News.
Jessica, thanks very much for that. We appreciate that. We just want to let you know, we just got word now tonight from Pueblo Police that Dante Lucas's mother, Sarah, has been taken into custody on a no-bond warrant for a robbery charge. Apparently nothing at all to do with the Kelsey Shelling case. But again, it's something we heard earlier. We just got confirmation that Sarah Lucas, the mother of Dante Lucas, was arrested tonight and taken into custody, no bond for robbery. We'll try to get more information on that for you. Also,
So that was just information I told in my anchor's ear at the time, because this was something we heard. So a little background. The guy who was arrested for murder, him and his brother were arrested for a simple robbery a few months before this arrest happened. And so there's lots of rumors flying in this community about the mother, and everyone heard, oh, she was arrested. And so once we heard what the arrest was for, so we knew how to tell the story, if it's related to this murder or not, since people are very interested in this, we wanted to get the news out as quickly as we could once we did hear which just happened to be at about 10:03 at night.
Tonight, we spoke to a lawyer about why an arrest in a case like this would come now, 5 years after the disappearance. And he told us it can often take years to find enough evidence to charge someone in a murder case. And with Kelsey's body still missing, prosecutors will have to look to other strong evidence to try to prove that Lucas is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
You could make an argument that she's still missing, but we don't know what evidence the police have right now. So if the police have a confession, you don't need a body. If the police have some other damning piece of evidence, then you don't need the body per se. You don't need any certain piece of evidence, and you don't need any certain time frame.
Now, this upcoming February will mark.
And so that's just another way. Oh, there's lots of questions people have about a story, so we need to add another 40 seconds of content to answer those questions about how can they arrest this guy finally after he's been a person of interest for however many years, to explain what's going on and why was this arrest made now. Yeah.
5 years since Kelsey, with her unborn child, was reported missing. And we're continuing our coverage now with 11 News reporter Tony Keith. He's here to take us back over the timeline of events leading to this arrest.
And so, like a lot of people, like in this room who don't live here, so probably don't know a lot about this case, or for your grandma at home in Colorado Springs who kind of knows this story but doesn't remember everything. A lot of times it's just good to fill time at the end of a long story with a recap of everything that happened, so to fill holes in anything you might have questions to.
Parents circle dates for birthdays or anniversaries. The mother of Kelsey Schelling is reminded of the day her daughter vanished every February 4th. February 4th, 2013, Kelsey Schelling left Denver to tell her boyfriend Dante Lucas she was pregnant with his child. That was the last time anyone will admit they saw Kelsey.
That girl has a mother and a family, and they're hurting.
Kelsey's car spotted in a Walmart parking lot 2 days later. Police say Kelsey's boyfriend was behind the wheel. February 15th, Kelsey's boyfriend was arrested for identity theft. For using Kelsey's credit card, that charge was later dropped. Jump ahead more than 3 years. May 31st, 2016. The CBI joins the investigation and the search is reignited.
It's not like a cold case, like other cold cases usually go cold within a year or two.
February 4th, this year, the 4-year anniversary of Kelsey's disappearance. Then, on April 13th, CBI started digging through the backyard of Lucas's former house. The items found were not disclosed to the public. May 1st, authorities announced a new lead in the case. Crews started digging up areas in the southwest side of Pueblo.
We're going to be going through our 5th holiday season without Kelsey and her baby.
Near Lucas's old house. No sign of Kelsey. Monday, November 13th, just a few weeks ago, Lucas was arrested for aggravated robbery with intent to kill, completely unrelated to the Schelling case. And we just learned, like we mentioned, that his mother was arrested. That is involved with that robbery case. That brings us to today. Police now believe they have enough evidence to say Lucas killed Schelling and her unborn child.
And so lots of times, obviously with a case this long and complex, and there's lots of pieces that I've gone into over the years, it's going to be a lot longer of a story. 6:19 that's more than half of my A block at 10 o'clock at night to fill. Lots of times where you have stories like this and you have lots of elements, it's just good to have a recap at the end of each one so viewer is reminded what's going on. Sometimes it can be a 30-second VO. Sometimes you might need an entire package. Yes? No. So that's why we want to just wait till we figure it out when, what's going on with her arrest, why was it, just so we could put to rest any rumors, since lots of people are like, oh, the mother was arrested. She's definitely involved in the murder when it wasn't the case. So that's why we waited. And I think it was just because there's lots of misinformation out there with rumors going around. So you want to tell people what's this arrest actually about, because people automatically assume, oh, the mother was arrested the same day. She's definitely connected to this. She did something. Any other questions on that? No? Okay. Then I showed you that. Lots of times you can just fill time by trying to localize big national stories. So back in June, or a couple of Junes ago, was President Trump's big summit with the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. We're always looking for ways to localize content, and especially during a show where you have lots of time to fill. This was on a noon newscast where I don't have any reporters and I have to fill 30 minutes with small break time. So this is how I planned ahead for this show since I figured, oh, people might be watching a noon newscast. And I reached out to our senator from Colorado who's on the Foreign Relations Committee and the chairman of the subcommittee for Southeast Asia. So he is the go-to expert on this, and he was on all the morning political shows the day before. This was on a Monday.
Looking ahead now, President Donald Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un will sit down for a face-to-face meeting tonight. The summit starts at 7 o'clock our time, Mountain Time. It's the first ever that a sitting U.S. president has met with a North Korean leader. President Trump met with Singapore's president ahead of this summit. After the meeting, the president said he thinks things could work out nicely with North Korea. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the president's goal for the meeting has always been clear.
He has made it clear that if Kim Jong-un denuclearizes, there is a brighter future for North Korea. Tomorrow, we will get our clearest indication today of whether Chairman Kim Jong-un truly shares this vision.
In exchange for denuclearization, North Korea will be looking for significant concessions from the U.S. Coming up later in this, we'll be talking live with U.S. Senator Cory Gardner about what to expect.
Yeah, so obviously I don't want to lead a local show with a big national story that hasn't even happened yet, but is the time of day fit to have something on this story in the A block? So I just decided to recap what the story is in the A block and tease it to my live interview later in the show, which I actually scheduled for later in my show because the sender wasn't available until 15 minutes in for a phone call. And then I'm also teasing ahead to this in each block because this is the best thing I have that day. And so that can fill time.
What he hopes will come out of this summit. For now, let's get another check your forecast. Lucy? Coming up next, we have a live interview with U.S.
So that's 2 blocks where I haven't gotten to that. So I still want people to stay interested. So I keep teasing it at the end of each block. Hey, this is still coming up.
The president is meeting with the leader of North Korea for an historic summit later tonight. Ahead of that meeting, we're talking with U.S. Senator Cory Gardner. Senator Gardner joins us live over the phone from Washington, D.C. Hi, Senator. Thanks for being here with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Senator Gardner is the chairman of the Foreign Relations Subcommittee on East Asia, Pacific, and International Security Policy. So, Senator Gardner, first of all, my first question for you, what are you hoping comes from tonight's summit?
Well, I hope this summit is a commitment that we hear directly from Kim Jong-un on what is our policy, our goal, both in law and stated by the president, and that is the complete denuclearization of the North Korean regime.
And I know you helped lead a subcommittee hearing last week ahead of this summit. What are some of the things that you talked about during that hearing and some of the next steps that you're focused on?
Last week we were able to hear from Victor Cha, who was a North Korea expert, but also nominated or at least considered to be South Korean ambassador to the Trump administration. Also Joseph Yoon, who was special envoy to North Korea at the State Department up until February of this year. hearing from those two experts, learning more about what complete denuclearization means, whether we think that Kim Jong-un is serious about it, and what to do after this summit were all some of the things that we talked about.
What are some of the things that you
So, ways to fill a live interview. You don't want to be seeing talking heads the entire time because that gets boring. So we have boxes with my anchor and the sender who's on the phone. We have just a shot of my anchor if she's asking questions so we can hear from her. We have a graphic full screen for the sender while he talks. We have video of the story, Kim Jong-un, if we need to cut to that, just so we can fill time and not look at the same thing over and over again to try to keep the viewer interested. And so, for example, this took about 30 minutes of extra work for about a week or so to reach out to the sender's public information officer person. And so that's about 30 minutes of extra work during the week to reach out and schedule this to fill not only 45 seconds in my A block, which I'd have that 45-second bow shot normally on this story, but to also fill my teases for that day, which you have to think, what do you want to tease to keep the viewer interested in each block? This just made it simple, so I can just tease the same thing each time. So that's about That was about 4.5 minutes I just filled just by doing an extra 30 seconds or 30 minutes of work for about a week to call the right people. Does anyone have questions on that? No? Let's see. And so this is what happens when you have a story that's happening now. This was during a 5:30 p.m. show, and this is in a town that it's not Colorado Springs, so we kind of care less, but it's happening right now. People in that town are tuned into the news. Hey, what's going on? Why is the one main street in our town all blocked off? And so we had a reporter covering this in the hour and a half before the show, and then magically the sheriff or whoever is in charge of the investigation decided, hey, let's talk. It's going to be at 5:30, which just happened to be when my show started.
Now, with an 11 breaking news alert. This is KKTV 11 News at 5:30.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Don Ward.
And I'm Diane Derby. We start with this 11 breaking news alert. A man just arrested in a standoff in a local community. We have video right here of his arrest. It started this afternoon in La Junta.
It's been going on for hours. We're expecting an update right now from law enforcement on the scene. They're holding a news conference right now. We want to listen in and see what's happening there.
Who are being sought on outstanding warrants were in the residence as well. Based on the information known to law enforcement, assistance from Otero County Sheriff's Office, Colorado State Patrol, Pueblo Police Department SWAT, and the 16th Judicial District Attorney's Office assembled at that location and attempted to remove all the individuals located in the residence. At the time of contact, 2 individuals vacated the home at approximately 10:15 a.m. to 10:30, at which time Jonathan McKay was arrested on outstanding warrants. Law enforcement secured the scene at 11 a.m. and at 11:19 a.m. A resident inside the house, Mike McNerney, was taken into custody on outstanding warrants. The 4th individual remained in the home, and after negotiations by the Pueblo SWAT, Leo Mills Jr. surrendered to the police at 4:45 p.m. Leo Mills was arrested on several outstanding warrants. At this time, there is no danger to the public, and all individuals involved are in custody. We would like to acknowledge and thank the officers of the La Junta Police Department, Otero County Sheriff's Office, Pueblo Police Department SWAT, Colorado State Patrol, the Otero County Emergency Manager, parole, and the investigators of the 16th Judicial DA's office. Thank you.
All right, that's the briefing there from Otero County. Just want to let you know that 4 people, it sounds like, were arrested. Various warrants for all of them. We'll sort through all the specifics. We'll have the information for you at KKTV.com and a full update tonight on 11 News at 10. But the bottom line is, in La Junta, everyone's okay.
And definitely a tense situation for them, Don. That went on for a long time today. That 4th person staying inside that home for almost 6 hours.
You can see on the face right there some real relief that that standoff is now over. No one is hurt. Now we have another 11 breaking news alert to tell you about.
Yeah, so at that point, leading up to the show, we knew literally nothing about what was going on other than a standoff started at this location between police and people inside. We don't know how many, who they are at all. All we knew was there's a standoff, streets are blocked off, and so that's why in a rare occurrence, we got video of the actual arrest. So we want to push our best video out as soon as we can and keep people interested before we finally get an update on everything that's going on during this press conference, which pretty much told the story when we didn't have anything. We didn't have any of that information until this press conference. And so that went about 3 minutes long, or 2.5 minutes long. And so my A block in that 5:30 is about 5 minutes I have to fill. And there's a reporter on that story. So when you take a press conference like that, you just kill your reporter since there's nothing more you can say other than they're out there, hey, I'm covering this story, look at me, which we don't want to do. And so then we, since that filled about 2.5 minutes, that's a lot longer than I expect from a reporter live shot that I had timed in my rundown. So I just killed a minute at the end of that block with shorter stories that I keep there just in case something like this happens. Does anyone have questions on press conferences or live shots? No. Okay, showed all that. And then these are other ways to fill time. So this is all the content time I have to fill during one of my 5:30 shows. And so you'll see lots of reporters in it and on various things. And yeah.
From your breaking news leader, this is KKTV 11 News at 5:30.
There could be a plea deal coming soon in a murder case that shocked our community. 2 teenagers gunned down. What's happening with that case tonight? Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Don Ward.
And I'm Diane Derby. An alleged shooter in the execution-style killings of 2 local teenagers could reach a plea deal with prosecutors.
It is for the murders of Coronado High School students Derek Greer and Natalie Cano Portito. These are the 2 people facing the murder charges right now, and our news partners at the Gazette are reporting that a plea deal for one suspect could avoid the death penalty trial. The murders happened back in March 2017. The teenagers were kidnapped and then shot and then left for dead on a rural road south.
This is new at 5:30. We are talking to the...
So a story like that where I don't have a reporter on it at all, but that's the biggest story I had at 5:30, the newest thing I had. You don't always want to lead with your, well, if there's stories of equal value to lead a show, you want to go with whatever's newest. So I led with that, and it's for when I don't have a reporter, and I have not a lot of sound at that point that we gathered that day, no sound. I just want to keep it quick. So you get the information, you're on to the next thing.
father of one student whose name was on a kill list at his middle school. That father was in court today as one of the suspects pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in a juvenile jail. The plot was against students at Sabin Middle School in Colorado Springs. Two teenagers that is, were arrested for creating a Columbine-style kill list. In court today, the now 15-year-old admitted he was going to carry out the kill list he put together. The father of one of the students on that list said the suspect did not get enough punishment.
I think 5 years is a joke. I think he should have got at least 10 plus. You know, it just shows that you can go out and say, I'm gonna kill somebody and get away with it.
The other teenage suspect will be in court in January. There's no word yet on whether he'll take a plea deal.
An update now, a small fire that became a big disruption. Police are trying to figure out just what happened when a fire broke out in a school this morning. This is some video of the smoke coming from a bathroom.
Sand Creek High School was evacuated in the Springs and classes were canceled for the rest of the day. Police are considering criminal charges.
11 News reporter Spencer Wilson is live at Sand Creek High in Colorado Springs now. And Spencer, you spoke with some students who walked right past that fire. Did they have any idea what was burning?
Don and Diane, the rumor going around from students was that it was toilet paper burning inside of that bathroom, but...
So I started this show with 2 stories that had been big in our community before I got to a small fire at a school, which is what our reporter was actually on for the day. So sometimes you just want to get the most important stuff out of the way quickly instead of starting with your reporter who is still on an important story. It's just not as prominent as other stuff that day.
Both the police department, the fire department, as well as the school district say it's all too soon to tell.
As you're walking out, you see black smoke emerging from the bathroom. That's what students were seeing. The video was posted on Snapchat.
All we saw was like smoke on top of the, like in front of the lights, and then people were just pointing to the bathroom like there's smoke coming out of it. It was just black smoke, and it smelled like some metal or something was burning in the bathroom.
Students were rushed out of the building safely. Nobody was hurt, but a few were scared.
Oh, when I got outside, I saw all the firemen pull up and ambulance, and I was like really worried at first.
There's little information about who started the fire or what happened, but there's a real chance whoever did will face criminal charges. But for now, kids and parents tonight.
All kids are safe.
Yeah, we're good.
Now we're expecting an update from the Colorado Springs Police Department on what those charges would be and if they're being placed in the first place. But for the kids who are going to this school, all the students here at Sand Creek High School, they will have school tomorrow. Everything's back to normal. I'm in Colorado Springs, Spencer Wilson, KKTV 11 News.
All right, could be a crime. Spencer, thanks very much.
Let's get to your no wait weather now.
And so what's different, so like you have to recognize what type of show you're doing. The 5:30 show, I have 5 minutes to fill. I only have time for 1-2 reporters max in my A block. Well, you saw at 10 o'clock, I have 11 minutes to fill in my A block. So I have more time to do things to tell a more complete story. So that's why you have a couple quick stories like the 2 I had before my reporter story this block, which are important and just got the simple facts and background out during my show. Then go to the news of the day, what's happening. There's a fire and all these kids went home early. It's weather, which fills. Normally every station does it differently, but people care about weather, so we'll have a minute-long hit in our A block from our meteorologist, what's going on for weather that day. And then we'll get to our main weather in our B or C block, depending the skeleton of your show, to give you a complete forecast. Okay. 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 Any questions real quick? Yeah? Oh. Yeah, so for the start of the show, I just want a simple, hey, what's going on? He filled out a normal live VOSA, as we call it. So he just told the story succinctly, what's going on. And so for like the B block hit that you're talking about where he talked to a teacher, yeah, reporters, we need to be in contact. Our reporter needs to go talk to teachers at the scenes, be like, hey, what's going on? Can I get you on camera so you can have some shots for your newsroom? Or, hey, are you comfortable to do an interview live on air? Which is what he did for the first teacher. Then at that last interview I showed at the final end of our block, that was the union president. We'd been talking to her a lot since most of the information we got about everything was coming from her during that strike. So we kept reaching out to her, hey, can we get you while you're out there? Where are you going to be? And so luckily she showed up at the location that we were hoping for at the district administration building at the end of our show. So we were able to talk to her then. And so she knew what was coming if she happened to be in the same place. And so pretty much my track to be a producer, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a baseball play-by-play guy. You can see I'm not very exciting as a speaker, so you probably wouldn't want to hear that. So I started covering sports in college, and I started producing a 30-minute sports newscast. I went to Arizona State. That's where I did that. And then I figured, hey, I don't like covering sports. It's not fun to not actually watch a game for enjoyment. So I just went to producing news, which I enjoyed doing. And it was the same thing. I like doing that more. I got a job in Colorado Springs right out of school. So lots of things you'll hear is like, hey, who do you know in the business? That's a lot of ways to get jobs, which that is a good way, but it's just a lead. So do think of that while also trying to build your reel, build your resume, things like that. And so, for example, I got my first job because while I was looking, my grandpa reached out to me, oh, hey, I think your uncle's friends with someone, a news director, and she happened to be the person that was hiring at her station, the news director there. So there's just different ways like that while you're looking for your first job. Yeah. So this is what mine looks like. I'm not great at coding. I just know the basics. So I just went to a website, Weebly, that pretty much had a layout. And so the way I designed it, I have something at the top to who am I, pictures of me so they know who I am. My resume's simple to find, so you can find that. I'm a producer, so I put one of my shows right there at the front of I'm a producer, so I put a show that I've done right at the front of my portfolio so they know, oh, hey, I can see exactly who this guy is right away and what he can do for us at our station. Then mine has a bio kind of who I am, where I went, what I do. Pretty much this is your cover letter. Instead of like sending a resume and a cover letter, just have that ready so people can read why they want you. And so then after I filled the basics in right away, I have a tab for my resume, which is easy to download and see. Producing, I have a tab for that where I have newscasts that I've done. This is a short documentary film that I shot and made while I was in college. So in case I ever want to go that route. Then more multimedia stories that I've done. Like this is the only one I've worked on at my station, which is police and fire departments were blocking people on a long list of people on Twitter. Other stuff I've done from college, since I don't do a lot of investigative reporting anymore, since I'm mostly focused on shows and getting news out quickly. Then also print stuff in case people want to see more of my writing and where I've written for, like the station I'm at now, classes where I've written for the Arizona Republic, which is the main newspaper in Phoenix, which I did for a class in college. An internship, Cody Enterprises, a small local paper in my hometown, interned there and wrote some stories there, just so people can see what you're doing. Then I put my phone number at the top and where you can find me on social media and email, just so people can find you easily if they stumble upon your page and want to hire you. Anyone have questions on that?